At Sustaincia, we launch sustainability.
Okay, welcome everybody to Sustaincia's MIECF Online Expo. We're going to start today's session with Smart City, and welcome everybody here.
Thank
So
you.
we're going to start recording this, and hopefully we'll have something interesting, and perhaps something we can make summarize video and share it with everybody. So let's start the discussion on sustainable building. Yeah, so maybe we can just maybe briefly introduce ourselves so that the people who are going to hear this on the recording can kind of hear.
Sure.
I'll start with myself. So I'm a local entrepreneur. My name is Terence, and I'm the founder of this association, Sustaincia, which is also called Sustainable Development Association. And one of the projects that we're doing is about smart city. And we also have some IoT project going as well with the universities here. So that's my intro. Perhaps then we'll move to Louis.
Yeah, thank you. I'm Louis Chan. I have an engineer project management background. I'm involved also with technologies, particularly for network systems, ELV, MEP, and got involved in this with the consult of my company, Xpace Tech, you can see it here, and got involved with the smart city projects for the new enhancements using this technology. Thank you.
Great. Then perhaps we'll go with Darlin.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Okay, I'm a civil engineer for 20 years plus, and from a construction background. And currently, so I'm a project manager in Macau, and I'm also enrolled in a PhD program in USA. So my interests in terms of research are specifically sustainable construction and smart cities projects.
Thank you. And Paulo?
Yes, I guess it's my turn now. My name is Paulo Ricardo. I'm an architect. I've been working on the last years as a design manager. Recently, I engaged in starting my own company, a design company, architecture and interiors. We are very focused on the sustainability and green buildings. And because of that, I have accredited myself as a lead person, and I guess that makes sense to be involved. And I want to thank you guys to invited me for this conversation today.
No, thank you for everybody's participation. I think one of the cool things that we can do is actually kind of see the Macau is a very small, dense city, but there's a lot of potential to try a lot of different technologies to kind of improve everybody's livelihood. So yeah, I think this is kind of the topic that we're all interested in. And I hope that we can actually gather more people as this kind of talk occurs more frequently. So we already have a WeChat group open. So of course, anybody can join that. And yeah, I think maybe we'll just open up a little bit about what you guys kind of see as being a smart city, right? For me, I think the smart thing is the people that's living in the city. And so one of the projects that I'm working on with FDCT is, so FDCT is a scientific funding department of the Macau government. And in that project, I'm trying to open up this platform where everybody can kind of have a building management system, even if it's just like a 3-story, old 30, 40-year-old building. So I can go into that a little bit later. But I want to kind of hear what you guys think about what you think is a smart city. So we'll just follow the same order as previously with the introductions. On the next one is Luis.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about what we just mentioned about Macau, and how we have the targets and how we get involved in the environment. Let's say we're just facing a new challenge this couple of days, right? From yesterday, we have an outbreak with the coronavirus, and you seeing the actions for the government and all the populations involved on this new challenge against the virus. So this brings back us to the concept of sustainability, right? And what it means sustainable. What is the target? What a place like Macau looking for, and how can we learn with that? So let's give you some background. What are you looking for, Eduardo? We're here, right? We're doing project. We're in a construction. Paulo, we're designing. We have to look ahead, foresee what a city or even a project looking for. So why do we have to be sustainable? What exactly that means? Can you share your thoughts?
I can jump on the conversation.
Sure, anytime. Go ahead.
I guess that one of the most important things that makes more sense on this discussion is that the main goal of all of this movement is fighting the climate change. We can see the solution in different ways. Every country is working on it. There are countries that are more advanced. There are countries that started working on these problems 20, 30, 40 years ago. There are countries that are just starting. It doesn't matter. The main goal is fighting climate change. This is affecting our daily life already. And we need to find the right solutions. We need to find the proper solutions for every place. I would say that despite that we can focus only in Macau, we have a reality that surpasses the dimension of Macau, because Macau is quite small. Despite that we could be doing already something, there's much more stuff to do when we include the reality of China. So I would say that this is the focus, fighting the climate change and creating, but to do so, we need to create a greener economy, an economy that thinks on the three pillars that will develop basically this new way to see the world and to see how we are going to implement this.
Okay, let me ask you,
Eduardo. I know that Eduardo knows a bit from this perspective, especially regarding the triple bottom line, because this is part of his research, and I would guess that is a good point for him to develop.
Yeah, just let me give you some background here. So we have these targets. Well, we go for we have this challenge now for climate change, so we have goals to achieve, right? So that's what he's saying. We'll give all this perspective to change the economy. So going back a little bit, we have a Kyoto Agreement a few years ago, back in the day, right? So countries agreed to have these targets. And after, well, more recently, we have a Paris Agreement. Again, countries going through setting targets to lower the carbon impact, the footprint, and all the actions they should. So they discussed that before. So, and somehow the whole world agreed that this climate change is an issue, and you have to face it.
Because it's changing the life of the everyday life of everybody, basically.
Right, right.
Right.
You can see it on the weather. You can see it how you produce your foods. You can see in many ways. But again, that's only possible to shift the way that things were working to the new way that things should be working. You need to create the conditions to do it, and the way that all of these systems that all the countries are developing sees them is basically evaluating how people, economy, and basically infrastructure can adjust to this new reality, and how can we produce a way of living that is focused on the relationship between man and nature. Because before we were just focused on man, and how man
Right.
was supposed to be more comfortable living in this earth. But now, no, we need to consider that we are part of a big environment, and nature. We need nature as nature needs us. So how can
That's a good point. Like people most of the time thinking about oh, that's sustainable. It's just about green and the nature and the impact, right? But actually, you just mentioned, so we have the environment, the mother nature actions, right? But at the same time, we have a social and economic events associated. So we kind of put a approach to this all together, right?
Yeah.
And it's not just about being green, right? Sustainable. You have to put all the economy, have some adjustments socially, have adjustments. So we need to see, not just react. We need to foresee all these matters. So so you mentioned about three pillars, three approaches. So Eduardo, you know something about this, right?
Yeah, but I would like also to highlight how the pandemic create a bigger gap between poor and rich people, right? So the social inequality is much bigger now, right? So, which is quite curious because we were shifting in a different way, right? We were shifting in a positive way to bring all the people together. Now we came like to a start point, right? Somewhere back in time, you know. So there's something that needs to be done. But about sustainability, this is being discussed since late 19th century. This is quite old. Despite we start to talk on a global environment since 1972, okay, with the first United Nations conference, and finally, and then later in 1997, yeah, we came to the famous Brundtland report, which this is the modern concept, which bring the modern concept of the sustainable development, where those three pillars that everybody's talking about were created, right? Were developed in this report. So now after this, there were some failures. There were some protocols that worked, but didn't work as the achievements the people wanted, okay? So like the Kyoto Protocol, okay? For instance, from this Kyoto Protocol, the developing countries were excluded, okay? So there was like China on the time, or India, so two of the major
Players, yeah.
green gas release in the world, they were excluded from this protocol, okay? Finally, in 2015, with the Paris Agreement, everybody was in a common consent, okay, on climate to reduce the carbon emissions and achieve the zero net greenhouse gas emissions during the second half of the 21st century, right? So everybody is now focused, but still is a very demanding goal. but everybody's focused on the goal of zero net emissions until between 2030 and 2050. Okay?
Yeah.
I just want to mention something, because I'm not really sure if on the Kyoto Agreement, India and China was excluded. I think they didn't sign because they didn't want to, and there's a major reason for them to choose not signing it, is because the constraints that the Kyoto Protocol created was major for their development, and it's difficult for a country.
That's right. The major key countries were the developed ones. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So they were more developed, and it was difficult for the most developed countries in the world, saying to the less developed countries in the world that they cannot pollute and they cannot evolve, or that, because that was basically the same thing. What we need to create, and that's why I guess this is a very important tool on the whole conversation, the green building rating systems and other tools that are being developed around the world, is exactly that, is creating the possibility of sharing information, sharing knowledge, sharing strategies between the whole countries, even the more developed and the less developed, to introduce new ways to build, new ways to face, let's say, the daily routine as the whole country, or better, the whole countries in the world, to develop better and sustainable societies. Even if you are not that developed yet, you don't need to go to the coal again to produce energy. You need to jump right to the solar, for instance, right, or for the wind, for instance. So this is kind of an approach that never existed before, because you were following the same path as the more developed countries. But now we cannot even think about that, because the climate change is here, is strong, is above us already, and we need to fight it with sharing information with everybody.
So we say we have this impact on the society and the economy. Just say that that's an imbalance in how you're gonna handle sustainability and economic growth, right? So you have this let's call this challenge to face, and you mentioned before about these three pillars. So have three. You guys can remind exactly what is these three pillars? So at the same time,
social development, economic growth, and environment.
So have to balance the three pillars, right? The 3 points.
Yeah.
So with things, as you say, the more countries are available that can handle better than others. But how you measure? We got a point. How you measure these targets? How can I count this? What is being done?
You guys see the screen? You guys can see the screen?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, so
Sure.
this is these are the three pillars, the three main pillars. Okay, it's like a diagram showing the balance that need to exist between the three of them, right?
No, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And if you see, it's funny to see, because when you look to this, you basically, if you want to go to the basics, you see economy, right? You see social, which is people, and environment, which is nature. So basically, is the balance of between these three pillars are the ones that are on the origin of all of our conversation, and the change in the society that needs to exist. That's for sure. I don't think that nowadays anybody's questioning the importance of these three pillars on the.
Sure.
Yeah. Sustainability is such a wide topic, and this is something our association encounters quite a lot. And the one interpretation is really kind of to make sure all the stakeholders within the topic in discussion is being taken care of. So the economy, social, environmental, all that are different stakeholders in this situation. And yeah, we really need to kind of listen to what each of the stakeholders are concerned about and trying to come up with solutions that are beneficial for all. It has to be a win-win-win-win, whatever number of win situation. And yeah, so, I think this is kind of a new mentality that I think a lot of local people are starting to be aware of. And this is why I think our association is a good place for that. So a lot of people can come in and take a look at different topics that we're looking into. Because they're interested in that topic, they are part of that stakeholders. They're just one of the stakeholders. So the more people that are in this project working on and collaborating on these solutions, I think the development of sustainability will happen. And yeah, so I think this is exactly what our association is about.
Terence, I can even say that the examining all the how this green building ratings are being developed around the world. There's one thing that is common in all of them, is they always started with the council, with the green building council. So I guess that your association or any other association that wants to be part of the solution, I think it could start thinking that Macau needs a green building council. It's the right way to start.
It's in existence, yeah.
I'm more than happy to help you guys as much as I can. But the truth is that the right way to do it is to start with a good group, with people that wants to take this to the next step, because there's a lot of challenges, and it's not in Asia only, it's all over the world. Africa is going to be a challenge also. Even in Europe is a challenge. Most of the countries in Europe, there's a lot of studies, there's a lot of master theses and doctorate theses. But in the daily life is just, we are just scratching the surface, is we need to go deeper and as I would say for everyone.
So you see, it's very clear the describe these three pillars and how they have to balance this, and of course between countries and different places, different governments have imbalances for economic, social, and environment, as we just mentioned about it. And particularly for construction and infrastructures, you're talking about, you mentioned about these rating systems. How these rating systems work and how they can help to balance and handle these three pillars to be more equalized, and how they can prevent. How did this start? You mentioned your LEED certification, and that's for America and most of the American countries. Europe have that code, the environment code, and even in Asia here, Hong Kong and around have their own sustainable green code, right? The guidelines for sustainability and construction. Paulo, what it can tell us about how it works and how can we implement that?
Is this for me? I can tell you that.
Yes, please.
I guess the Paris Agreement is let's say, is what unifies all of this. Every country has differences culturally, language, everything, right? And the Paris Agreement establishes the main goals, and then you need to detail and you need to go closer to your community. And that's why that's important to have a group of people thinking on how we are going to adapt our strategy to our country. And that's why the Green Building Council is the way that most of the countries understood to do it. And then they start developing, among other institutions and other parties, the rating systems. There are rating systems that are hugely evolved, and there are other ones that are just starting. But that's fine. It's okay. It's part of the process. Countries have different rhythms and different velocities. The one of the ones that are more known in the world is the American one. But even that one was done based on another one, on one of the first ones that was the English one, the UK one.
BREEAM,
Yeah.
BREEAM.
I think everybody's learning from each other.
yeah.
Of course, is because
And actually, it's quite curious because the second oldest one is the BIM in Hong Kong. I don't know whether you guys knew about this.
but makes sense, the relationship between England.
Of course,
and
of course. Yeah, makes sense.
Makes sense that because
Yeah.
I mean,
Actually, this was established before the handover, so in '96. So
but in the end, they all try to search the same goal.
Of course.
Create a balance between man, nature, and economy. Economy is very important because is what puts food in your plate, right? But it's important to have the notion that a new balance needs to be found.
But let me just tell you something about the intervention of the government. Don't forget that the green rating tools, they are voluntary tools, right? Assessment systems. And if I'm not wrong, the only place in the world it's mandatory, it's in Singapore, okay? So, but before the uptake of the green rating systems in a country or in a territory, then needs something to be done in terms of regulatory and minimal requirements in terms of energy efficiency, and this needs to be done before, so that the uptake of these rating systems can follow the same trend. So when the rating system is combined with stringent and efficiency requirements for everything, for materials, for energy, for everything, when these two are combined, they are really strong. Okay, and this is the way we have to follow everywhere, so that we can meet the requirements and the goals of the Paris Agreement, okay, in my understanding.
That's a good question. Like, is the rating or the standards that the other countries are following, are they totally applicable here? Perhaps there are things that we should be more concerned about. For example, the air conditioning of the buildings here is a major contribution to the carbon footprint.
Actually, it is. Yeah.
And I don't know if that's the same in Europe. Probably not.
It's not. Yeah.
But perhaps also in Singapore they face similar situation. So we could really pull from all these different places standards and requirements, and then build up our own here. But on the other hand, like, do we need to compare ourselves to the other countries? And if we do, then we also need to follow kind of their standards too. So, for example, China have their own standards, and
yes.
So is that something? Do we need to be like a subset of these standards, or should we be like a superset?
Actually,
yeah.
Okay, each system has its particularities, okay, that are adaptable to specific geographic areas, okay. For instance, I don't think that of course, there are maybe different opinions from different people, but the China GBEL, the green building label, maybe it's not so much adapted here in Macau, since we are talking about here about a super dense city, okay? So which has its own particularities, okay? So maybe we need to approach more near the beam plus. Also, the LED, I think maybe can be adaptable. I don't know, Paulo, whether you have any opinion here on this matter.
Yep.
Um,
I guess, as I told you guys, the principle that I'm studying several rating systems. I was studying the rating system from Hong Kong, India, Malaysia, Australia, Singapore. All of them are, and several other ones, but all of them, what I can find is basically the goals are more or less the same. They are adjusted to their society.
Right.
To make that possible, of course, you need to have data that is possible to describe your own society. There's many ways to do it, because it's data from nature, data from economy, and data from the social network that composes that country. So to create that, I guess that Macau is very different from China. It's impossible to create, or I guess that it's not impossible to create a matrix that works in China and Macau, but definitely there is something on that matrix that needs to be oriented to Macau.
Yes.
Because Macau is different from the rest of China. I know that China is huge, is enormous, but there is something special, there is something unique here, and needs to be treated as that, basically.
So let's break down these requirements and how we approach it, because you're talking about many different places and different rating systems and different requirements and different necessities and needs between different places, right? So we also mentioned about creating a green agenda for Macau, a green council to discuss this. But let's break down a little bit of this ranking. And you mentioned also about data. What kind of information we're looking for when we must have it in order to create this and to evaluate what you have what you have to do the next step, or what are your targets? So let's say you're talking about lead, what's the main approach and topics? Energy, let's say waste management, transportation. Let's break down a little bit of it and try to see what Macau needs more for.
I can make a brief characterization about lead in 2 seconds. Lead was born after was created the Green Building Council in the US. Basically, the first lead rating system was ready to go on 93, and the goals at that time and even today, the main goals was to reverse climate change, protect water sources, protect and restore biodiversity, and contribute to the shift for a greener economy. These were the main goals of the lead rating system, which, if you see, 99% of the other ones in other countries are exactly the same. Of course, that are areas that you need to have specific data to understand what you need, the baseline that you start and where you want to go. And there are things that need to be measured for sure. The energy, the water consumption, CO2 emissions, the indoor air quality of the buildings, and of course, how we are spending our resources, our natural resources, our raw resources. And all of this combined gives you, in the end, some regulatory measures that needs to be implemented to create a more balanced economy. When you are doing a building, you are building economy basically, because there's so much stuff involved, so many people involved, that you are building economy like that. Buildings are part of it's part of the society, and it's a piece on this big puzzle. And this is basically a very rough description of LEED, which I intend to think that 99% of the other rating systems
should be similar, right?
Should be similar, yes.
So then you said you're talking about data and information, how to fit every particular situation or place, right? And we talk about this rating system, and well, Macau. Let's use Macau as an example. We don't have this, still don't have the concept of this rate. But what do you think? We need to spend some time developing this rating system to create your own code or guidance, or you just adopt somewhere else rating system, LEED or BIN, whatever, and put it here? Or do you believe you need to spend this time to develop this rating system in order to fit more properly?
Honestly, I believe that we need to start now, yesterday. And for that, it's impossible to create a new system, a new rating system from the scratch without knowing nothing. Of course, that we need to start as all the other ones started, based on another rating system that needs to have the flexibility to be adjusted during time. I can give you an example. We have in 2025, I guess, China needs to make the report that was agreed on the Paris Agreement regarding all of this. And all the measures that were agreed on that time, one of the things was the minimum performance agreed at that time was to drop the temperature 1.2 degrees, which means that all the measures taken had to lead you to that goal. I'm not sure if we are going to reach that goal, for instance, And of course, Macau is just a small part of China.
Yes.
But we are in this group anyway, and we are responsible for indirectly, probably most indirectly, but we are responsible also for these numbers. And if you can see, is a very exciting website, which can give you the environmental performance index from, I guess it's from Yale University. You can see the index of almost all countries in the world, and you will see where we are, where China is on the panorama of the world, basically. And you can see it. I can forward it to you guys. And you will see basically, I'm not sure if this data is completely reliable or not, but that's not the point. The point is that there are someone that is measuring this thing up. There are reports that were done in the past already, and this is part of that study. Of course, that I'm not sure if Macau has the same ability of China to gather this data, but I'm sure of one thing: if we can grab this data, and this data is not measurable only by machines, some of them needs to be measured by people. But anyway, this is very important to you to start building something unique for your region, independently of being Macau or China or wherever. This is very important to understand that to reach the balance, you need to study your reality. So that's the most important part now.
Yeah, you got a good point before as well. Like Macau, as a place, there isn't there isn't that much nature, other than the couple of hills that we have. But actually, the majority of our landmass is for housing and office buildings and buildings of all sorts. So if we can make these buildings much more green, right? Our contribution for Macau is that, right? So we can really take
Right.
what we actually have the most of, which is buildings, right? And really kind of work on that to make them as sustainable as possible, and that would put us really, I think, to the top of the list in a lot of things.
That's a good example, Terence. This is mentioned out. So you're talking about how to benchmark this rent, right? So Paulo
Yeah.
giving us some of the examples how actually we can impact and do some procedures and measures to achieve these goals, right? You just give a good example, like, okay, Macau don't have a lot of Mother Nature of green zone, so we don't need to focus that much on the green zone, right? We don't destroy what we have, but we have a lot of buildings, and that's where we have more, we can handle better. And let's say that it's a field you have to put more effort on that. So definitely building is a main target here in Macau. So that's how I mentioned how to benchmark this. And talk about this building. We're talking about data. We're talking about benchmarking, ratings, and in order to make decisions and forecast a better environment, we need this data, right? And this comes from this, which kind of data we're looking for. We just mentioned about temperature, how hard it is to decrease one.
Let me give you an example, a very simple example that I would say that it's a sample of what we can do and how we can gather that data. You can measure the temperature of the soil in a street without trees. Okay, a simple street, with a walkway and with cars and with buildings, and you can measure the temperature in several places. And then you go to a street which typically is the same section as a street, and then you measure the temperatures again. But when you have trees, the other one you don't have trees, you will see that data gives you something that you will be probably surprised, because the difference between one and the other is going to be huge. Right. And this will be reflected in how we spend energy to cool
Right.
it, you know. So yes, when you have a street where you can be below a tree with 20 degrees, 20 something degrees, and the same street without trees, you have 30 something degrees, it's a major difference and interferes in your quality life. And the way that you related with the environmental, with all the constructed city. So right. This is a simple example how design can easily help to achieve these goals. Sometimes yes. It's very passive as this, is how can we control in a building the airflow of the building, for instance, or the orientation of the building, or creating shadows on the building. This is all strategies that are easier for any right. designer to perform, and they will break down for sure in the end of the year, in 10 years, in the whole operation of the building, any extra cost that implied in the beginning on the first day when they were constructing the building, So this is the way of thinking. This is how we need to shift, because sometimes we need to think ahead, and we need to think how is going to be. That's why a lot of people wants to always talk about two other things that are connected, is the LCA and the LCC. LCA is basically the way that you can assess the reality at that moment.
What LCA stands for?
Sorry?
What means LCA? Can you just
Life cycle assessment.
The life cycle assessment of the building. And of course, and is connected with the life cycle cost, because one thing leads to the other, right? So if you can, and this is the right way to do it, especially in a capital society as we live in, is easier sometimes for people to understand when you have numbers. And when you see that the cost can increase, the Americans say that their study regarding green buildings implies that a green building can cost maximum 20% more than a regular building. The average is less than that, is around 12%, but let's assume that is 20%. What is really important is to know that on the 25 years of the lifespan of a building without great maintenance, how much we are going to spend on that building, on the maintenance and operation of that building.
But you can even expand the lifespan of the building, right? You have this.
Sorry?
You can even extend the life.
Of course,
you can extend it.
Yep.
A building can live much more than 25 years, but usually 20-25 years is the way that we have without major maintenance calculate these numbers, which means that we have this number in the end, which is the real cost of that building. And when we compare both, I'm sure that you will have a surprise, because your building.
Yeah, let me share about that. I have one experience to share with you. Like, you just mentioned about. I totally agree with it saying. So data is very important. How are you gonna handle this? I have an example for experience in the main buildings here, Macau, a huge one, right? Of course, it's a casino one. I don't need to say the name, but with our experience there at the time, we managed it.
I can share with you, sorry to interrupt, but I can share with you a list of all the leads. Actually, I gave to Eduardo. Eduardo, can you share with all of us, please?
Sure.
The list of the lead buildings.
In Macau?
Yes, in Macau.
So at that time we managed the building, right? And I was participating. I belong to the Energy Safe Committee. And how would I have this target? I try to put in parallel what you're saying about the environment, that the whole place, big place like a city, for a micro environment, a micro case like a building, right? A huge building, but anyway. So at the time, I have this a target to save energy, and one of the targets was in order to achieve these savings, we have to measure and decrease adjust the temperature in order to save energy for the aircon system. So, and we just got able to do this because, we have data. So it's let's say it's a smart building. I'm going to talk a little bit more about this later. But we have the sensors, we have the systems, the BMS, the building management system, and we have all this data controlling and monitoring the whole building. So that provides us enough data information to make the next step for our actions to control this. And this is just one target that involves so many operations, staff, and adjustments that you see. Yeah, you need to have this data in order to rank and benchmark what you're going to do, right? So we're showing this list. I believe I have every company or building management aware about this green and this ability about the properties, facilities. Of course, you save money, you improve your system, you get a better maintenance, on your facility too. And I'm gonna leave another question. So we're seeing right now private sector take their own steps in order to achieve their goals. They set the goals. Okay, let's do this. Let's be more green. Let's choose one rating system. Okay, how you balance this and how you see this private initiatives versus the public initiatives. I don't believe that the government pushed them to do it all or promote it, but they do it by their own, right? How you see this balance? I mean, let's put it this way: we need the government to push, or we have their own initiative to start this process and then build it. So we're talking about builders now, right? So we have to wait the government to push us, or we should give the first step. What do you guys think?
Can you see the table, right?
Right.
Yep.
Okay. So the most of the certified projects here are major resorts, right?
Yeah.
So from multinational companies. So I think, in my opinion, of course, these are the main drivers here in Macau, but without other push from a different source, I think would be not possible to expand and to promote more the green building. Okay. In my understanding, these major resorts, they are also following international requirements. Okay, because they are multinational companies, they are following their standards. Okay. And also they have social responsibility here in Macau. Okay, so they need to be sustainable. They need to provide better service to people. They need to save. They need to show that they save. Okay, and not being greenwashing. Right? They need to do it. Okay. So this is my.
You can explain what means greenwashing, because probably some people.
Maybe you are the best guy to do it.
Okay, greenwashing is basically when a product or a regulation implies that they are more green than it is, and is a big fake on what is the result and what is the effect that product or that rule has. Basically, is that. But anyways,
Yes.
it's important to. I think it's important to give this instruction to people, because some people cannot know probably.
Do you think that the greenwashing is possible within the green rating systems? Do you think it's possible to fake?
I think that is not possible with the green building rating system. If that green building rating system respects the fundamentals of the green rating systems spread around the world. If they have those fundamentals, I don't think that is possible. What is possible, though, is from one day to the other become everything green, and that is basically what we are seeing to happen nowadays regarding suppliers of materials, construction materials.
Yes.
So that's one of the concerns, that they basically didn't change almost nothing on their production, and now they are green. Regarding some buildings, some examples of buildings that have that they were being certified by any rating system. Most of them, they were certified after the construction, which means that these rating systems, they all try to have some flexibility. It's another thing that they want to try to do. They want to be flexible, not to answer only for new buildings, but also to answer to existing buildings already. There are I didn't explain this before because I was just giving you a simple explanation about LEED. But LEED, for instance, you can certify stores, which means it's just small parcels of a building.
Right.
If you look to this table with more attention, you will see, for instance, some big worldwide brands of clothes that they have their own stores certified by LEED, for instance, and that means that being said is 200, 300 square meters, 500 square meters only inside a very big shopping mall. So they the green building building rating system adjusted to several approaches also, which
Right.
means that you can have a building that is not green, but inside you have parcels of the building that were built according with those fundamentals. Okay, that's we are living on this world at the moment, because more than it's to stimulate the way of thinking. That's why they are evolving to this. It's to stimulate the way of thinking of every time that you produce something, produce it in the right way, despite that you are in a building that didn't follow those fundamentals before and when it was constructed. Okay, so I think the major difference from the first and the earliest green building rating systems in the beginning 20 years ago is exactly that. They got much more detailed and focus of any possible intervention on the on land or space that the man can do.
Right. It's interesting. I'm looking at the list, and I see a lot of retails and casinos, but what about these educational institutions, universities? Macau is actually a university city. If you start counting how many universities we have, and they actually also take a large portion of the landmass, right?
But Terence, I'm not sure if they don't have any other. They didn't follow any other green building rating system. I'm not sure. This is
That's true,
only the
right.
LEED. This is only the LEED list
Yes.
from what I've been able to find
Yeah.
here in Macau. I'm pretty sure that because Macau doesn't have their own system, let's say
Right.
like that, they have an extension of the Chinese system, which comparing with, this is a very old system already, right? It's very
Yes.
robust system already. So it's still on development, the Chinese one.
Yes.
These are the ones that are
Listed,
certified so
for
far,
LEED. Right.
which is manifestly is not that big, which brings me to comment the something that was said before, which is related with if we need, or if the government needs to push the public institutions needs to push to this to happen, or we can rely only on the private sector. In my opinion, this needs to be pushed by the public sector for sure. It's the only way to combine those three pillars.
Yes.
Because
Right.
when you are talking about the private sector, it's normal that the private sector don't think about those three pillars in the same level. And it's important to think about them in the same level to have a balanced answer to this problem, of course.
Right. Yeah. I understand this list is only for LEED, and I've been kind of paying attention to some buildings which are doing the Chinese 3-star green assessment. So as far as I know, most of the educational institutions do not have any sort of
Rating. Okay.
green rating, at all. So and I agree with you. Like the private sector push is actually a good way to go because it's faster, and I would say the reason why the private sector want to have this is actually a lot of these companies really have to do some sort of reporting about their sustainability, right, to the investors and to their consumers. So this is actually a benefit for them. And same thing with the educational institutions, right? You have these educational institutions, academia, writing a lot of papers about, for example, Greater Bay Area sustainability, right? But the institutions that's actually doing the research and the professors that are in these institutions, they are not in a building that's rated, right? And that's kind of contradictory, right, to what they're kind of push in their own research. So I really think, yeah, this private push with maybe focus on some of the bigger institutions in Macau could be one direction that we can look into.
For now, is the only direction that we have. The stronger direction is the biggest companies that are operating here in Macau. They are the ones pushing this to ahead, basically. Despite that, there's an effort, a public effort to follow through also, but it's much stronger on the private sector at the moment. So for sure.
Yeah.
But universities are also important drivers in this process. It's always everywhere, right? They are the ones that innovate. They are the ones who start applying new technologies, all stuff, right? And I think it's also a good way to go ahead, right?
Yeah.
But one thing that is curious, you know that USJ is in the rankings of the sustainable ratings of the worldwide universities,
Right.
you know?
Yep.
Because
They're doing a really good
those
job.
ratings are based on the sustainable development goals from United Nations, okay? Not based on the on green rating, green building rating systems, right? So yeah, it's quite a different methods of achieving also sustainability, right?
Yeah. So the United Nations have their own guideline and have targets from the United Nations. Can you talk a little bit about this? Or what's the difference between the United Nations and the leader of being one?
United Nations, the Paris Agreement was signed through United Nations. Don't forget that the biggest protocols were agreed and were discussed on through United Nations, okay? So United Nations is serving as a platform of gathering all these people to discuss these problems since the beginning.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think usually United Nations have much wider sustainability goals. I mean, they don't just look at like the energy savings and the basic building stuff, but they have other stuff as well. But I don't know if it's related, but I mean, we can definitely pull from these different standards, but we have to first understand them, I guess, and see which part of it kind of applies. Yeah.